All right, let's dive into something pretty amazing this time. I'm talking about humanity's future beyond Earth. We're going to be looking at Michio Kaku's book, The Future of Humanity, and this other book called Journey to the Stars, Humanity's Space Future. So basically, get ready to think about, like, colonizing Mars, mining asteroids, and maybe even living longer in space.
You know, what's really interesting is that these ideas, they used to be just science fiction, right? But now scientists and engineers are actually like seriously thinking about this stuff.
Yeah, I mean, it's not just like we're trying to escape a dying planet or something, but more like we're, making sure we even have a future.
Right.
But it's kind of a crazy jump to go from worrying about traffic to planning, like, life on Mars.
Exactly.
Where do we even start with all of this?
Well, Kaku, he uses the example of an asteroid, right? Like the one that wiped out the dinosaurs.
Okay, yeah, that'll get your
Yeah.
attention.
It definitely makes you think. But even without, something that dramatic, we've got climate change and resources running out. Like, these are real problems that are making us think beyond Earth.
So it's not just about dodging a space rock, but realizing that what we have on Earth, it has limits.
Yeah.
We can't just keep growing forever without looking for somewhere else to go.
Exactly. And that's where this thing called the Kardashev scale comes in.
Yeah.
It's basically a way to see how advanced a civilization is by how much energy they can use.
Yeah.
So right now, we're type 0 civilization, which means we still rely on, like, fossil fuels and stuff from Earth.
Okay.
But to really be a spacefaring species, we got to reach type I, and that means using all the energy from the sun that hits Earth.
Type I. That kind of sounds like leveling up in a video game, But what would that actually look like? Like, what kind of technology are we talking about?
Well, we need big advancements in solar energy, right? Like global energy grids, maybe even like power stations in space that beam energy down to Earth.
Mm-hmm.
Think about it. We'd be harnessing the entire power of the sun. That would completely change everything we do.
Yeah, I bet it would make my electric bill look a lot better, too. But it also seems like a lot of work, Like, are we talking a global effort bigger than anything we've ever seen before?
Absolutely. Yeah. To get to type I, we'd need countries to work together, put tons of money into research, and just basically change how we think about energy in general.
So reaching type I, it's like a stepping stone. It helps us solve problems on Earth,
Yeah.
and as it pushes us further out into space.
Exactly.
And speaking of pushing further, it seems like everyone's talking about space exploration these days. What's going on? Why all the hype?
I think it's a bunch of things, On one hand, you have like NASA and other government agencies doing their thing.
Yeah.
But what's really cool is that private companies like SpaceX and Blue Origin, they're getting involved. They're not just launching satellites anymore. They're building reusable rockets. They're talking about moon bases and sending people to Mars. And they're doing it all, like, commercially, which is a big deal.
Yeah, it does feel like something's changed. Like, going from the first airplane to, like, commercial flights.
Yeah.
Reusable rockets, like the ones SpaceX makes, those Falcon 9s, I think. Those seem to be making space travel a lot more, accessible. Like, anyone could do it.
Right. It's becoming more affordable.
Yeah.
And that's what makes, like, colonizing other planets, especially Mars, it makes it feel more real.
Mm-hmm.
We're already talking about building places to live on Mars, creating systems to, like, breathe and stuff, even changing the planet to be more like Earth. Terraforming, they call it.
Wait, terraforming Mars. That sounds like something out of a movie. Can we really do that? Or is that just, wishful thinking?
Well, it's a massive project, that's for sure.
Yeah.
But the science is interesting. Mars has this thin atmosphere and lots of frozen water. So some scientists think we could use things like greenhouse gases to trap heat, thicken the atmosphere, and eventually melt that ice. It wouldn't happen overnight, but imagine over time seeing Mars change from a, like, dry desert into something more, livable.
That's pretty mind-blowing to think we could change a whole planet's climate.
It is.
But what about the practical stuff? Like, to build a Martian city, we'd need so many resources. How would we get all that stuff to Mars?
That's where this idea of asteroid mining comes in. And it's pretty smart, actually. It could change how we think about resources completely. Instead of bringing everything from Earth, imagine getting those materials from space.
Right, like a cosmic Home Depot. Speaking of resources, didn't I read somewhere that there's this asteroid 16 Psyche, I think it's called, that has a ton of precious metals?
Yeah, that's right. It's got a crazy amount of iron and nickel resources that could be worth like quadrillions of dollars.
Yeah.
Really shows how asteroid mining could not only help us explore space, but also, change how we get resources back on Earth.
Quadrillions. It's hard to even imagine that much wealth just floating around up there.
Wow.
But okay, let's say we have the resources, we maybe even have a city on Mars. Now what? How do we get to other star systems that are light years away?
Yeah, that's the next challenge, right? And for that, we need to think completely differently. We're talking about things like nuclear fusion propulsion, using sunlight with these giant solar sails, even some really out there ideas like antimatter engines.
Antimatter engines. That sounds like something straight out of Star Trek. Are we talking warp speed here?
Haha, not quite warp speed, but it shows you how scientists are trying to push the limits. There are even projects like the Breakthrough Starshot Initiative. They're trying to send these tiny spacecraft to Proxima Centauri, the closest star system to us, at a good chunk of the speed of light.
So while we're not zipping across the galaxy tomorrow, the ideas for getting there are already happening. That's amazing. But with all this talk of leaving Earth and going into deep space, it makes me wonder, how will all this change us as humans?
That's a really good question. It goes beyond just the technology. It's about what it means to be human. Some people who think a lot about the future, they believe that space travel could lead us to transhumanism.
Transhumanism, what is that exactly?
It's basically about, like, enhancing ourselves. Maybe merging with machines, even putting our consciousness, like our minds, into computers. It's about pushing the limits of what humans can do, both physically and mentally.
Whoa, uploading our minds. Are we talking about like digital immortality? That raises some big questions about what it even means to be human?
It does. And it's something that people are actually exploring seriously. Imagine exploring the universe without a body, traveling at the speed of light, maybe even living forever.
Okay, now that is mind-blowing. But wouldn't that change like everything about how we experience things, what happens to our emotions and like our relationships and who we are?
Yeah, those are deep questions, and there aren't any easy answers.
Yeah.
Some people think these advancements would be like a natural step for humans, while others worry about the ethics of it all and, what could happen if not everyone has access to this technology.
It's a lot to think about. It's like as we push further into space, we're also pushing the limits of what it means to be human. And that brings us to like the biggest question of all. If the universe is so vast and has so much potential, why haven't we met any other intelligent life?
Ah, yes. The Fermi paradox. It's a question that has really puzzled scientists and philosophers for a long time.
Yeah, I mean, statistically speaking, it seems crazy that we'd be the only intelligent life out there, right? So where is everyone?
That is the million-dollar question, or maybe the trillion-dinar question.
Yeah, it's a real head-scratcher. It's like, if you think about how many stars and planets are out there, the chances of us being the only intelligent life seem, super slim.
Right. That's the whole paradox. And it leads to some pretty wild possibilities. Like, some people think that maybe advanced civilizations are so different from us that we wouldn't even recognize them as intelligent.
So, like, we're looking for something that fits our idea of what intelligence is, but maybe intelligence can take on, like, totally different forms in the universe.
Yeah.
Kind of like, I don't know, maybe we wouldn't understand how dolphins communicate, even though it's pretty complex.
Yeah, exactly. Or maybe they're out there, but they're hiding, just watching us from afar.
Right.
Maybe they're waiting for us to reach a certain level before, saying hello. It's kind of like that zoo hypothesis, which is a pretty humbling thought.
Okay, that is a little creepy, like we're just, ants under a microscope or something. But if they are out there and they're so advanced, why haven't they, like, reached out? You'd think interstellar travel wouldn't be a big deal for a civilization that's that far ahead of us.
That's where things get even more interesting. Some theories suggest that interstellar travel, even for super advanced civilizations, is incredibly difficult.
Yeah.
The distances are huge, resources are limited, and who knows what kind of dangers are out there that we don't even know about.
So maybe they're out there, but they're stuck in their own little corner of the galaxy. That makes sense, but it's also kind of, disappointing. It makes the universe feel a lot more lonely.
It's definitely a possibility, but there's also this idea called the Great Filter, which basically says that civilizations might run into these like existential threats that stop them from reaching a certain level of technology or even from, surviving long enough to contact anyone else.
A great filter. What kind of threats are we talking about here?
Well, it could be anything, really. Like, it could be something we do to ourselves, like nuclear war or destroying the environment. Or it could be something natural, like a giant cosmic disaster, like a gamma ray burst or a supernova. The theory suggests that somewhere along the line, on the way to becoming a really advanced spacefaring civilization, there's this obstacle that most, if not all, civilizations can't overcome.
So maybe the reason we haven't met any other intelligent life is that they just didn't make it, they didn't survive long enough, or maybe WE haven't passed the test yet. That's a pretty sobering thought.
It is. It makes all the problems we're facing now, like climate change, running out of resources, the possibility of nuclear war, it makes them seem even more important. Maybe how we deal with these problems will determine whether we become a civilization that goes out to the stars or just another failed experiment.
Yeah, it puts things in perspective, doesn't it? It's not just about saving the planet anymore. It's about making sure humanity has any kind of future at all.
Exactly. It shows how important the choices we made today really are. Investing in science, solving global problems, working together, and I think most importantly, staying curious and wanting to explore. Those are the things that might help us get past that great filter, if it exists.
So it's not just about building rockets and spaceships, it's about building a better future for ourselves, right here, right now. It's almost like space exploration becomes a way for us to show what we value and what we want as a species.
That's a great way to put it. And who knows, maybe solving those problems here on Earth is what will unlock that next level of technology, the kind of leap we need to really become a spacefaring civilization.
It's like that saying, to solve the biggest problems, you gotta look beyond them. And speaking of looking beyond, remember that Kardashev scale? Right now, we're at type 0, trying to get to type I, where we can use all the energy from the sun. But what's after that? What does it look like to be a type 2 or even a type 3 civilization?
Now you're talking about civilizations that have really figured out how to use energy on a scale we can't even imagine. A Type 2 civilization, they could use the energy of their entire star. They could even build something like a Dyson sphere to capture all the sunlight.
A Dyson sphere! I've read about those in sci-fi books. That's like a giant structure that completely surrounds a star, right?
That's the idea. It's mind-blowing to think about the engineering involved. But if they could do it, they'd have access to so much energy. It's crazy, like nothing we can even understand right now.
It'd be like having a billion nuclear power plants. So what would a type 2 civilization even do with all that energy?
I mean, the possibilities are endless. They could travel between stars easily. They could terraform planets on a massive scale. They might even be able to, manipulate space and time itself.
Yeah.
We're talking about a civilization that's basically become one with their solar system, shaping their environment however they want.
It's hard to even picture that level of technology. And what about type 3? What does a civilization that's spread across an entire galaxy look like?
Type 3, that's a whole other level. They would have colonized so many star systems, probably using the energy of billions of stars. Their technology would be so advanced, it would probably look like magic to us.
Wow, manipulating galaxies. That's like God-level stuff. But I guess that's the whole point of the Kardashev scale, right? It's not just about measuring how much energy they use. It's about understanding how much power they have to change their environment, to become like a force of nature.
Exactly. And it makes you think about some pretty deep questions about intelligence and technology and even consciousness. As a civilization moves up the Kardashev scale, it's not just their technology that changes, it's their whole way of thinking, how they see themselves in the universe.
So it's not just about reaching these milestones, but about what kind of civilization we become along the way. Will we be explorers? Will we be protectors? Will we be conquerors? Will we be driven by curiosity or greed or something else entirely?
Those are the questions we need to be asking, because the future isn't set in stone. It's shaped by the choices we make, the things we care about, and the stories we tell ourselves about who we are in the universe.
It's a lot to process, but it's also incredibly exciting. It feels like we're on the edge of something truly amazing, like we're about to start a whole new chapter in the story of humanity.
Yeah, there's a lot to think about for sure.
We've covered some pretty amazing stuff in this deep dive, like going from colonizing Mars, which seems almost possible now, to these Type 3 civilizations that can shape entire galaxies.
It's really incredible what humans can come up with. And the best part is that a lot of these ideas aren't just science fiction anymore. We're actually starting to build the pieces of a spacefaring civilization right now.
It makes you wonder, what will things be like in 100 years or even 1,000? Will we have cities on Mars? Will we be living in other star systems? Will humans be all over the galaxy? It's both exciting and kind of scary to think about.
It's definitely a future with a lot of potential, but it's not a sure thing. It really comes down to the choices we make. We're not just along for the ride. We're the ones building this future.
That's a powerful way to think about it. We tend to think of the future as something that just happens to us, but we actually have a say in it. We can steer it in a direction that, matches what we believe in and what we want.
And that's what makes these conversations so important. It's not just about the technology, it's about the kind of future we're trying to build.
Yeah.
Do we want to be explorers, driven by curiosity and wanting to understand the universe? Do we want to be protectors, taking care of life as we move beyond Earth? Or will we fall into the same traps of, greed and short-sightedness, making the same mistakes we've made in the past, but on a much bigger scale?
It's definitely a challenge, but it's also a huge opportunity. We're the first generation that can really see what it means to become a spacefaring species. It's a big responsibility, but it's also a pretty incredible thing to be a part of.
And it's not just for scientists and engineers, it's for everyone. Every time someone learns something new, every time someone asks a question, every time someone imagines a better future, they're contributing to this grand adventure.
So, as we wrap up this deep dive into humanity's future among the stars, I want to leave you with this thought. The future isn't something that just happens, it's something we create together.
Dream big, keep asking questions, and never stop exploring. Because, the sky's not the limit when there are footprints on the moon.